the monarchy of England lost power, the Spanish monarchy gained, and gave Louis XIV a rival for patronizing the arts. Looking for a truly Spanish identity after the completion of the Reconquista, and fueled by gold taken from the Americas, the Spanish monarchy embraced the pomp and grandeur of the Baroque style. A group of homegrown painters emerged, with Diego Velázquez in particular rising to stardom. Velázquez was the only painter allowed to paint the king's portrait, and whether his subject was an absolutist monarch or a court dwarf, Velázquez painted them with a dignity in a serious manner. By 900, the Mayan culture that we looked at earlier had greatly contracted. Several sources will say that it had collapsed, but in truth the cities collapsed and the culture continued in smaller populations. By the 14th century, the Aztecs had become the dominant force in the area. They could rebuild a landscape to support irrigation-based agriculture, and in doing so created the island city of Tenochtitlan. They had a fierce military that allowed them to capture the prisoners of war they required for religious sacrifice to keep the world going. The Aztecs had great reverence for the civilizations that came before them, seeing Teotihuacan as a holy place. They always make the history books for practicing human sacrifice, but they also continue to improve on the writing systems of language that we looked at before, creating beautiful poetry. Their prowess as stone carvers, as you can see here, is quite impressive as well. The book to the right is one of a small number of known Mexican codices. These are screenfold manuscript books, dating to pre-Hispanic times. This one is made of deer skin and is comprised of 47 leaves. The codex contains two narratives. One side of the document relates to the history of the important centers of the Mixteca region, while the other, starting at the opposite end, records the genealogy, marriages, and political and military feats of the Mixtec ruler known as Eight-Deer Jaguar Claw. Very few Mesoamerican pictorial documents have survived destruction, and it's not clear how this codex did. We don't even know how it reached Europe. In 1859, it simply turned up in a Dominican monastery in Florence. It was the Aztecs who were predominant power in confronting Hernan Cortés and his conquistadors. Cortés conquered the Aztec kingdom with some 600 men through a series of military tactics, superior weaponry, they had gunpowder, so cannons and muskets, through the introduction of European disease, which was an inadvertent advantage, through allying with the other native populations who resented the Aztec raids for prisoners, and through a series of conniving lies and half-truths. The biggest was that the Aztecs had been waiting for the feathered serpent god, Quetzalcoatl, to return as a light-skinned, bearded man as prophesied. Cortés used this mistake to jail the Aztec king and assumed power. Cortés then drained the Aztec culture's wealth, and the disease then ravaged all of Mesoamerica, with a population that had in the mid-20 millions dropping to about 2 million. The Incas were an amazing culture in the Andes of what is today Peru. Historical accounts tell us that they were great metal workers, though most of their work, particularly the gold, was melted down by the conquering Spanish. Machu Picchu was a royal retreat at about 4,000-foot elevation. Fortunately, it's very remote and built to conform to the curves of the mountain, so it escaped Spanish detection. It's so invisible from below that it was not rediscovered until 1911. This work shows the amazing ability of the Incan Empire, which built over 14,000 miles of road and mastered terrace agriculture on the sides of the Andes Mountains. In South America, it was the Incan Empire that was the most powerful, and by the 14th century they began to dominate, reaching a height that included the modern-day countries of Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, northern Chile, and portions of Argentina. Francisco Pizarro and his conquistadors eventually conquered the Inca in 1533.